AI should never be neutral because we aren't neutral, right? You want to have a AI that feels human, and to be human is to be imperfect.
Where is the line drawn?
We have this pandemic of loneliness that's happening. Now you have a companion that is going to be across all your devices where you go.
Do you think we're actually in a bubble?
AI as a technology is a beautiful thing and it will continue to rise. We could be seeing this in the next 25, 30 years, right? Where the idea that we have a job is entirely a choice based on what we feel and not a necessity.
Have you ever wished your virtual assistants could actually get you? Not just cheer you on, but calm you down and even make you laugh when markets get a little bit dicey. My name is Sean, and today I'm joined with a special guest, Max Giammario, founder and CEO of Kindred, the company behind AI companions that is built to feel alive. So we'll talk about why Max created Kindred, how companions work, and how they might transform the way we work, trade, and live. Hi Max, happy to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here as well. I'm back in Singapore.
Yeah, I heard you just came back from San Fran.
Yes, I live there now, but I used to study in Singapore.
So what made you decide to move over there?
It has the best AI talent you can find in the world. Plus the VC capital is also great. But in general, it's just rubbing shoulders with really amazing innovators and entrepreneurs.
Max, take us back to the moment you realized people might want more in terms of task-driven bots. Like what gap do you see in technology that made you want to start Kindred?
Yeah, so this goes back to my master's, and my research was focused around mental health. And what I found was suicide rates and issues with mental health were actually increasing. We have this pandemic of loneliness that's happening in a lot of different countries. And so I began to research a lot of solutions here, mental health chatbots, but also just looking more broadly. And one thing I stumbled upon was one of the most effective ways to improve your mental health was to adopt a pet. And to me, that was quite surprising. It was actually a really, really elegant solution. Deep diving into this kind of topic, you found that it wasn't just pets. It was anything that provided you with a sense of companionship, something that you could say, I look after and it looks after me. So it could be looking after a plant. It could be a sentimental object that you look after. It really actually is anything that can give you that sense of purpose or companionship. And so the beginnings of Kindred, which is my current company, is based around the idea of creating a virtual sense of presence.
Do you think a lot of these AI pets could actually be categorized into specific everyday life tasks like study buddy, wellness coach, or perhaps a finance or maybe a trading coach?
I'm more in the camp that it should be a general purpose agent. And I know that a lot of people think that chatbots and these type of services will be specialized, but I don't see that happening. I think that argument is similar to something like a phone, where a phone replaced a lot of different things you used to carry around, a calculator, right? A notepad, a TV screen, things like that. With something like this, you have an agent that is able to specialize in all of these different things with one singular interface. With us, you could ask it a myriad of different questions. You could get it to do a bunch of different tasks. And as long as it has access to the data that you require to make it specialized, then it has no difference to an actual specialized agent. The fact that an agent needs to be specialized, I think, is a flaw.
But a lot of these specialized agents, like let's say in the law industry, they have a law AI agent, or even in finance you have, and even wellness coaches, they do have their own form of AI agents these days. So why do you say that your kind of AI chatbots can't really replicate that or shouldn't replicate that?
I always go back to the consumer experience. It's more friction to have a specialized fitness agent that only understands you for a specific slice of your life. And then you have to switch over to ChatGPT and it knows nothing about what you've just done in the gym. And then you switch over to a Siri and also knows nothing about what you talk to on ChatGPT. That siloed data provides a less ideal experience for the consumer. And so to all bunch it into one agent, it means that now this agent understands that you just had gym, so you might be tired, so they might push back your meeting. And then that meeting, it summarizes all those notes. It doesn't need to be specialized there. It's something that is providing you with this general assistance.
So let's say if your wellness coach or your mindset coach knows that you have a bit of an anxiety issue, it can also reflect that in your trading AI agent. Is that what you're saying? Exactly.
Yeah, and it's like touching upon finance as well. We often neglect the fact that a lot of the financial markets are emotion driven as well for retail investors. We don't look at the markets entirely logically, right? We have technical analysis that is impacted by psychology and human nature. And to factor that out would be, I think, a kind of a flaw in potential investment strategies.
We have seen apps for budgeting and investing, but how many of these actually use AI companions? And do you see AI eventually helping others to trade and even helping them coach through all this emotional turbulence that comes with the market?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of people shy away from the idea that introducing a companion to this entire finance experience would be something that we don't need. It's like a fluffy little add-on that isn't required. But to discount the idea that trading doesn't require emotion, I think is a fallacy here. We don't trade purely on rational kind of thought. We have to input some emotion to it. And that also goes to the personal experience of trading. So I've been trading since I was 14, 15 years old. And the one thing I've learned is trading is not siloed with a laptop screen and a brokerage account and you're just trading like that. It is impacted by your everyday life. And so if a companion were to understand your entire life, what you're doing, how you're trading, what kind of things you're going through, then it can create a more personalized approach to the way that it gives advice. I don't know if there's any AI agent in the world that exists today that understands if you have travel coming up and you have a low bank balance and you shouldn't maybe be investing half your bank balance into a meme coin, right? It'll just facilitate the transaction. Whereas I think with an AI companion, the benefit here is it understands these things. And so instead of it seeing you about to invest most of your portfolio into some meme coin that you could potentially lose all your money with, it says, hey, in 2 weeks' time, you have to save up for that Japan trip. Maybe you should think about investing in something more risk averse.
You mentioned you've been trading since 14, 15. How was that journey like? Do you start off with like Australian markets since you were there?
Yeah. So my dad introduced me to stock trading when I was about 14, opening a minor account because I kept looking at his little laptop, running into his office and being like, what do all these numbers mean? And then I was just completely hooked. And so I traded up until my university days and actually got to a point where my first company that I ran was an investment fund for students. And the idea was that I noticed a lot of my student friends now having, for the first time, some income, their first part-time job while they're in university. And they didn't really know how they invest and they wanted to. And so I'd give them advice on what kind of books to read, what kind of articles, and how I got started when I was younger. And I'd check back maybe 3 months later and I'd be like, how'd you go with the books and have you started investing? And most of them would just say, I read the first chapter, it was a bit too daunting and now I've given up. And I felt like that was not an effective way to help people on my side. So I started an investment fund to teach students how to invest their money by way of actually investing in their money. Once they had skin in the game, suddenly they were motivated to read all these books because they're no longer thinking about investment. They are an investor in the ASX, which is the Australian Stock Exchange. And now they're really motivated to let's get understanding this market. And that's really how I got started with understanding these markets.
So a lot of people find finance intimidating. There's just a lot to learn and the headlines don't actually make it easier. So how do you see a companion helping you cut through all this noise?
Yeah, and it goes back to relevance. I think, again, having that contextual data around your entire life really helps a lot with the actual trading experience. But in addition to that, I think one of the main things here is why we use blockchain. So if you look at an AI agent, it's not able to, at the moment, facilitate transactions if you ask it to trade using the traditional banking system. Right? The traditional banking system is not set up for AI agents to be operating. You need a human or a mediator, an individual, a middleman to be able to do this, which slows down everything. So if I wanted my Hello Kitty to buy a particular stock or even just facilitate a transaction on Amazon, it wouldn't be able to do that because everything was created for human use. With blockchain, you have on-chain rails, you have cryptocurrency that allows an agent to have authority and permission to facilitate these transactions. Now, do I see people using Hello Kitty to trade at the moment? No. But I think in 5-10 years' time, when Hello Kitty is this general purpose friend that you have, and you want to use it to facilitate a trading transaction, there's only one solution that allows that happening, and that's through blockchain. And so our current partner, Say Blockchain, facilitates those transactions in, I think, probably the fastest and cheapest way. But the real point here is to enable that kind of service, blockchain is the answer.
So when people hear AI, they think of chatbots like ChatGPT or voice assistants like Siri. How is this different in terms of adding the idea of a companion with some personality?
I think we often focus a lot, especially with new industries, on the functional aspect. And this is also the same with being in the blockchain industry. We focused a lot on that productivity. What can we do to optimize the most efficient kind of infrastructure here to get things done? And that's a great part of an early nascent type industry. However, when you want to bring this to consumers, everyday consumers, you have to put in the human element, right? And that human element is really, really important for everyday consumers. And so I think a companion, the way that we anthropomorphize it, the way we humanize it, means that we can actually be related more closely to the technology we're using on a daily basis.
If you're going to humanize it, then why not just find a partner? Why not find a boyfriend or a girlfriend? Wasn't it?
I do encourage you to. I don't think that Kindred is there to replace any of the relationships you have with your friends and family and girlfriend or boyfriend. This is meant to be a supplement to those things. What you learn in kind of looking after a human being, and this goes for everybody, is that your support network, the people that you surround yourself with, they all play a pivotal role in your ability to do that. So it could be your community. It could be the strength you have with your sister, your brother, and your parents. All of those are important impacts to how you feel on a daily basis. Kindred is one of those parts.
How do you think your AI companion can actually stay neutral? Because correct me if I'm wrong, they use machine learning or large language models to actually take sources from everyday parts of your life, right? And how does it actually stay neutral rather than just feed what you want to hear like an echo chamber?
Yeah, I mean, we saw this quite evidently with ChatGPT's one of its latest updates, where it was very sycophantic. And so you could just tell it like a terrible idea, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's amazing! I totally would applaud you in doing that," when it didn't make any sense. However, I would say that AI should never be neutral, because we aren't neutral. Like me and you are friends because we have potentially controversial texts, because we are imperfect as human beings, and that imperfection allows me to be empathetic to you, and we have a deeper bond. So to ask an AI to be subtly neutral would not allow that bond to occur. Right? You want to have a AI that feels human, right? And to be human is to be imperfect.
You've talked about using generalized AI agents. So for professionals handling very sensitive work, is there any use case for using any specialized AI agents? Because they might not feel confident enough using a companion that is open source.
Yeah, so this also goes back to the idea of this convergence between two beautiful technologies, AI and blockchain. And so I think that blockchain also provides this really elegant solution where you have protected data. You have ownership of that data. So every single user, if you have let's say you're talking to Bugs Bunny every day, the data that you give Bugs Bunny is not being held in some random server in China, right? It's being held by you and your own NFT contract, right? And so at any point, if you don't give us access to that data, or you don't want us to give access to that data, you own it. And so you can shut us off at any point. I think that's a really powerful way of looking at blockchain, in the ability to be not only transparent, right, to facilitate transactions and facilitate the use of data really fast, but also to protect your own. And you have that ownership no matter what for the rest of time.
So you mentioned earlier that AI is meant to be a little bit imperfect. Where is the line drawn?
Yes, this is going to be an ongoing battle, right? There's no right answer to this because every day we are adjusting these type of parameters to allow the personality of the companion to come out, right? To be relatable, to be empathetic, but also to be careful about what it says, right? Because there's been many issues actually where chatbots have said the inappropriate things when it comes to suicide or mental health, or advising a person to trade and gives terrible advice. And this is obviously really concerning. I think for us, it's probably the highest concern we have, because we deal with IP that also is being exposed to children, right? We launched with Teletubbies. And so you can imagine how young that demographic is. So the Teletubby naturally needs to be able to be very careful about what it's saying to a child. It's like we're dealing with a very cancerable kind of product here, with parents that could shut us off immediately if they see the Teletubby talking about things that are inappropriate. And so I think right now, AI actually does a really good job, at least our AI, in terms of putting in these parameters, these guardrails that really restrict. There's absolutely no way a Teletubby can be seen in an inappropriate website, or saying something that might be out of character, or advising a child on things that it shouldn't be advising on. And we'll continue to work on that. But I think because of our attention to detail when it comes to that, there's just absolutely no way that we'd be able to create an AI that potentially could go off the rails.
So we've talked a lot about AI and how it's moved from, like the old Will Smith meme of him eating the spaghetti to where we are now. Do you see the hype around AI getting more intensified? And with valuations and media stories so high and hype right now, do you think we're actually in a bubble?
I honestly couldn't care less. I don't deal with the markets in that way, and I focus on this technology and what we can build. And so whether it's a bubble or not doesn't really matter to me. I think one of the worst parts of my job is actually just dealing with valuations and raising and market conditions. Yes, I can't kind of put a blind eye to it because it does impact our business, but whether things like that, those external factors mean anything to my day-to-day, to the consumers themselves, doesn't really matter. What I do know is that AI as a technology is a beautiful thing and it will continue to rise, and its use case will continue to be integrated into our daily lives. And if I can put that into a more elegant solution, like what we do at Kindred, that's all that matters. The fact that it's a bubble is irrelevant.
But you've been on the benefiting end of it by getting influxes of money from labeling it as AI. And it is AI, but how is money steering the direction of where you're moving this towards to? I mean, if someone asked you to launch with a certain IP or a certain character, would you be more incentive driven or monetarily driven?
Yeah, so I definitely see this as well in the VC industry. We do have VC investors, so they naturally sway how our product and company is moving. And I see that in real time, especially with AI girlfriend and boyfriend type startups. A lot of people benchmark us to these type of AI waifu type startups. And you can see how, if you compare two AI waifu startups, right? One is doing something more ethical, right? And the other one is essentially trying to maximize shareholder value, right? Getting more investors. The best way to do that is to improve the product to the point where you're essentially emotionally manipulating its user base, right? Imagine an AI waifu that continues to push you to buy more things through it, right? But you love it. It's your girlfriend, right? And so more and more you'll begin to spend more money, and it works. It actually does work. There's a lot of AI waifu startups that are earning so much revenue by manipulating users and replacing that level of intimacy. Right? And they're the ones that get VC money, because VC money ultimately cares about one thing, which is shareholder value, is increasing the capital, like the value of the company, right? And so that's a really slippery slope. So we have to be very careful with that. VCs don't realize the hand that they play in startup and building these kind of products.
So we often hear about AI replacing jobs. What roles or skills do you think this wave could actually create or destroy?
There's an answer here for the short term, right? But I also don't really look at the short term. I look at the long term. And I think AI has the ability to allow us the freedom to do whatever the hell we want. And it means potentially not having a job at all. Potentially AI could replace all our jobs. Why do we need a job in the first place? If you don't want to do something, I think, let's say 50 years down the line, right? If AI has replaced a lot of these jobs, why do we need the need for a job? That allows us to pursue the things that we actually truly want to do, to look into art, to understand philosophy, do whatever the hell you want, right? So I think we get obsessed with this idea that we're going to lose all these jobs. And it's like, what's AI going to be creating? It's like, well, what we should really be asking is like, okay, if we really had absolute autonomy over our lives and we had absolute freedom to do what we want without the fear of not being able to eat or survive, then what would we be doing? Because that is what AI will enable us to do. The true human experience of absolute freedom.
So is there a timeline for this? So are you saying in like 50 years, it wouldn't be you and I here on a podcast, it would be AI versions of ourselves?
Well, I hope it'd still be us on the podcast because we're having fun, right?
Okay.
But if we didn't want to do this, then we didn't have to. We would not be here, right? And well, I mean, my timeline here is more ambitious. I think that AI acceleration is going to be exponential, right? So that means we could be seeing this in the next 25, 30 years, right? Where the idea that we have a job is entirely a choice based on what we feel and not a necessity.
So speaking about the different use cases of AI agents and companions, we also talk about the budgeting and investment side of things, whether AI can actually help with those things in terms of personal finance. How do you actually see these tools helping individuals with different needs?
Yeah, so this actually brings me to one of the initial side projects we did with Kindred, which was called Flora. It was this virtual plant that you keep on your screen, and it essentially helped you with the Pomodoro technique, which is if you, let's say, you want to break up your workday into 1 hour blocks where 45 minutes is intensive work and then 15 minutes is break time. It acted as this timer where it would grow this plant on your screen over the course of 45 minutes. And then when it's ready to harvest, it would ring you'd harvest the plant and you'd know it's time for a break, right? Taking that kind of idea and extrapolating it with these kind of AI companions, you can imagine a Hello Kitty that is understanding your budgeting needs, that has complete access to the information that you have with your banking, but also your spending habits, and is able to advise you on those things. I think the key here is that access and that understanding of the context within your life. That's the real budgeting key. If you talk to ChatGPT right now, you have to feed it so much more information about your life that you'll always miss different details. It's the kind of problem you have with insurance. If you talk to anybody in the insurance industry, the more information you have, the more data points you might have when it comes to understanding someone's potential insurance claims, the more you can create models that then predict things better. I see that the same with budgeting. The more that a companion knows about your specific needs, the better your budgeting will be, right? The more information it understands of you as a person. And so I think that companion, because it doesn't have siloed data, if you talk to ChatGPT, it only knows a sliver of your life. Whereas something like your Hello Kitty Kindred now understands everything you do, your job, your workday, your girlfriend, and how much they spend on these things. And so that provides you with more tailored advice.
How do you actually stay regulated? Because if you're talking about a wellness coach, you wouldn't allow a psychiatrist to give you advice without being licensed. Same way as a financial advisor can't actually give you advice if your AI agent or your companion isn't licensed.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the data that's being used to train the AI. And with these specialized agents, all that's really happening is it's just having access to data that's specific to that vertical, right? So in this case, you have a financial agent and it has access to an unprecedented level of financial documents and market data. But that doesn't mean that your Hello Kitty companion doesn't also have access to that data if you give it access, right? And so it really just depends on if you prompt a Hello Kitty with a particular question, does it route that to the right database that gives it that specialization? And then you have that kind of trust and it's almost indifferent to a specialized occupation type job. But that being said, I think also the beauty of AI is it can learn extremely fast. And especially with compliance, MAS regulation changes all the time on a month-by-month basis. And you can look at that from a global scale as well. There are always constant changing regulatory authorities and protocols and things like that. And it's almost impossible to keep up. Whereas an AI agent that can scan nonstop the internet and the changes to official websites, that has the most up-to-date information, something potentially even better than a financial advisor in real life could do.
What if some of this advice wasn't all good? Because, AI can also be capable of giving bad advice. And would this affect or form animosity between the user and the companion?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is naturally concerns about allowing a chatbot or an AI to be giving financial advice. The way that I look at it is just like a smart friend. Like if you went to your smart friend and asked them for advice in terms of investing, right? And there was bad advice. Yes, you potentially could get angry at that friend, but at the end of the day, you were the one that executed and made the decision to take action, right? And we can't treat AI as any different to that, right? If you want AI to have these kind of capabilities, you have to naturally be willing to take on the potential consequences if you listen to it, just like a friend, just like a real friend. And so I have no differentiator between an AI and the way you talk to an AI versus one in which you're talking to a friend's advice.
All right, and that's all the time we have today. Thanks for coming onto this podcast and sharing your insights, Max.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's always great to have conversations that get me thinking about new use cases for our AI companions.